Good evening, everyone. This is the meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission today, January 13th, 2022. My name is Joan Keston. I'm the acting chairman for the Historic Preservation Commission. Hearings before the Historic Preservation Commission are quasi-judicial in nature. This is a design review process to determine if the proposed project is congruous with the special character of the historic district or landmark. Decisions of the Commission are based on the record of these proceedings, the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. Evidence submitted to the Commission for review becomes part of the record. Appeals of Commission decisions are to the Wilmington Board of Adjustment and then to the Superior Court and are based on the record. Appeals must be filed within 30 days of the date of the Commission's action. Evidence is received during the evidentiary portion of an agenda item. Those who want to address the Commission are sworn as witnesses to present material and substantial evidence to the Commission. The Chair recognizes those who want to submit such evidence during the evidentiary hearing. Evidence should be directed to the Commission. To ensure that evidence is properly recorded, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and speak clearly. A brief reminder that members of the HPC are appointed by and serve at the pleasure of the City Council. Our charge is with respect to the perfection and preservation of properties in the city's designated historic districts. We are held to the standards of the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks and per applicable North Carolina state law to determine if exterior changes are congruous with the special character of the city's historic districts. It is important that we deliberate the merits of each request in a manner that provides a record as to the basis for our decisions. Please remember that our deliberations should be centered on how a project meets the design standards and whether the proposed change is congruous or is not congruous. Commissioners, if you have received or been made aware of any outside evidence related to any of the matters, please recuse yourself. At this time, I would like to request that all cell phones be either turned off or put on silent mode. Thank you. And if the Commission staff would introduce themselves? Commissioners? Stephen?
Stephen Sulkey.
Ron Wilson.
Michael Smith.
Ashley Wilson.
We also have in attendance Melissa Huffman, who's the Assistant City Attorney, Christine Hughes, the Senior Planner, and Amy Bradshaw, the Planning Coordinator. If anyone wishes to present some evidence this evening, if they would please stand, and Amy will swear you in.
All applicants need to stand, and anyone who intends to speak. Is that everybody? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll proceed to item number 1 on the agenda.
We're going to do the minutes. We're going to do the minutes.
I'm sorry? We're going to do them at the end.
Oh, okay.
Good evening. Let me see if I can adjust this from the other, or Amy's going to. Thank you. The proposal before you at 226 South 4th Street is to change the roofing materials from slate tiles to architectural asphalt shingles on the main portion of the house. The existing standing seam metal roof on the porch would also be replaced with snap-block architectural metal roof panels. Built circa 1910, the house is a side passage 4-square house with wide eaves, wraparound porch, Tuscan columns, and a hipped roof dormer. The house is a contributing resource in the historic district residential. Revisions to all facades of buildings in the entire site are subject to design review in this district. The applicant requests approval to replace the existing slate tile on the main portion of the roof with asphalt shingle asphalt shingles and to replace the existing standing seam metal roof with a new metal roof. The asphalt shingles will be CertainTeed Belmont shingles in Stonegate Gray, and the lower porch with standing seam metal roof materials would be re-roofed with Metal Roofing System 1000 snap lock aluminum roof panels, 16-inch wide, flat with no ribs or striations in the color dark bronze. The roof is a character-defining feature. The texture, depth, and form of a slate tile roof are physical elements that contribute to its defining features. The roof on the subject property is visible from both South Fourth and Ann Streets. No new gutters, downspouts, or vents are proposed as part of this project. The small shed-style roof over the back door is not proposed to be changed at this time. The design standards note the diversity and variety of Wilmington's roof types. Technological advancements allowed for other roof materials beyond the original wood shingles, such as standing seam metal, polychrome slate, and clay tiles. The design standards recommend retaining and preserving character-defining roof materials that contribute to the historic character of the building. If a portion of the roof needs replacement, to replace it with materials that match the original or historically appropriate features in design, pattern, color, and scale. Staff would like to enter the staff report into its entirety into the evidence for tonight's proceedings, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions for staff? Thank you. Would the applicant like to step forward and discuss the project?
Good evening.
Please state your name and address.
David Seymour, 226 South Fourth. So what would you like from me beyond the proposal?
Are you happy with all the conditions and everything that was staff required?
Oh, yeah, the one condition I noted was retaining the slate, and I'm curious as to how that's done. I mean, working with the Historic Commission to keep some of the good slate, I've read.
Oh, you mean for the things that you can salvage?
Yeah, and I mean, that's where I am too. I want to salvage some of it as well for my own keepsake, but that's something the commission would like to see.
And so I think staff can help you on that as well.
Yeah, I figured as much. Okay.
Any questions for the
I
applicant?
mean, one thing I have, the color of the dark bronze was a little, it's pretty rough to look at it in a copy. I have a sample if you'd like to look at it, a metal sample. I don't know if you need, it's pretty, I mean, it's pretty less is more type thing. Would you like to see it?
I think we can see it from here.
That's good.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for the
Yes,
applicant?
I have questions. One of the aspects when we allow a slate roof to be removed or a metal roof to be removed is that those roofs are in terrible condition, and they have to be to preserve the house. Now, I looked at this roof. The metal seems pretty intact, and I didn't see a single piece of slate tile off the roof. So normally we have evidence of the damage being caused by the inadequate roof, and I didn't see any evidence in the packet.
I see. Well, the metal roof is tight. That's a fact. So there's no leaks there. But the slate roof is leaking in at least 4 places. I mean, I have tarps and buckets in the attic, and I have, flow through the plaster onto the ceiling and the walls.
Okay.
I didn't take pictures of that. I mean, I could submit that if you need it. But I can tell you there's damage, and I've had people look at it, and it's been repaired several times. So we're in the repair stage now, so this would be a continual event, I believe. I think the slate is original. It is hard slate, so it could go
Yes.
forever, but it's not. There's pieces missing. It's every now and then there's one will slide off, and there are leaks.
So do you have any documentation from any contractor that the slate cannot be repaired?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Did you say that you've had contractors out there to take a look at the roof? I rode by your house a few days ago to take a look at it, and I'm like Mr. Selke there. It seemed in repairable condition from my eyes, but have you had, I know you said you've had it repaired. Have you had anyone out there recently that's provided estimates to repair the leaks?
Well, I have an
or-
estimate. I have an estimate. I didn't get an estimate specifically for slate. I used estimates from the past submitted to the council based on similar size house. I don't have anything in writing from a contractor saying it's not repairable. I'm sure it's repairable. I'm sure it is. But I think I've reached the point of diminishing returns on repairing that slate. You know, the house is 120 years old. It has a useful life. And if you look closely at the pictures, you can see that slate is broken and missing.
The repair tends to be outrageously expensive, does it not? The repair of a slate roof is very
Repair is.
expensive.
And, you know, in my thinking, I want to protect that house. So I don't want repairs and I don't want other leaks down the road. I want to make that thing, I want to button it up tight to preserve it, because everything we're doing inside is then protected, and to me, then the house is whole. I don't think I get there with slate. Repairs, in part.
Okay. Are you aware that metal roofs can be coated with a flexible coating?
Yes, I am. Yeah, we thought of that too. The metal, if you zoom into the pictures, the metal, existing metal is very, it's coarse. It's, the edge is not clean.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's just rough cut. I mean, if I were to do that, I'd have to get up and trim that edge. I want it to look neat. But I'm aware of the HydroSeal and other materials used to seal that. I believe it already has some on it. It seems to be a thick coating.
Right, I have
It's
a metal,
not, you know, it's not a piece of,
I have a metal roof in my house, and I think it ran me about 15,000, but I had the entire edge redone with metal coming down up under the roof, and then the entire roof, it's elastomeric coated,
yeah.
hydrostopped and all that to
Yeah.
preserve the roof. And if you do that, you can basically preserve a roof forever.
Stephen, I'm not familiar with that technique you say, because that's what jumps out at me about this particular metal roof, is that the panels, the surface, the flat surfaces and the the standing seams look reasonable, that it could be pressure washed, rust inhibitive primer, hydrostop, whatever color you like, but those edges, I see that front leading drip edge, and you're saying I'm not familiar with that technique, that you could take new metal and tuck it up there and make it look good and be functional.
Yes, because of mine, I also had internal gutters. They had to cover that too. But that's what it is. Basically, they just put a flashing, more or less, underneath and tied it in. That would fix that edge.
How old is this metal roof, do you know?
Old as the house.
Yeah,
So
correct.
and how long do these metal roofs last usually? Does it make sense to add money to it if it's towards the end of its lifespan?
Money is not an obligation. I mean, part of what we're to consider, is it? Is that?
No, but it's to be
okay.
fair to somebody.
But,
I mean,
Yeah, there is a
replace these
point
all
of
the time.
diminishing returns, I believe.
I can see that more on the slate roof than the metal, but, you know, I think people have also walked along this a lot and smashed down those ribs.
Well, yeah, I noticed things like that. And, yeah, there are some folded seams. Yeah, I can't argue that it's not repairable. Like I say, it's not leaking today. I'm sure the materials are out there to seal that and make the edges clean. But again, we're trying to rejuvenate this house and, you know, not make it modern, just make it tight. From the foundation up.
Any other questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll now open the evidentiary part of the meeting. Does anyone wish to come forward and present evidence? Thank you. We'll close the evidentiary proceedings. Commission deliberation?
I am not comfortable changing this stuff, not without more proof of the leaks that this slate roof is not repairable. We're losing too many slate roofs, and all the ones we have allowed to go were in horrible shape, missing tons of tiles. I mean, and basically, this whole report lacks the evidence for that.
I tend to agree. I think this is a very significant house on a corner. It's all original, it's intact, so that in itself is something that we should really take into consideration, I think. We don't have many houses left in the district that are totally original, so I would like to see perhaps, I don't know, everybody wants to vote on this, a continuation, if that he could look at somehow repairing the slate roof or trying to save it. I would have a hard time voting to remove the entire slate roof based on what I've seen and the lack of any engineering report that there's failure involved with that, so.
I personally don't have a problem with removing the slate roof. I think the applicant's word of what's been going on is sufficient for me. We've had these issues with slate roofs all along, so I have no problem with it.
I'd like to know if, from the staff, if other homeowners who did have their slate roofs removed were required to submit proof that they were beyond repair. I mean, if this applicant has to do it, then there has to be some kind of process for him to follow.
Typically, with the change in roofing materials, applicants, usually the roofer will submit photographs, and the damage to the roof is evident in the photographs. This applicant did submit photographs of the roof from the roof. They are attached to the staff report. But in terms of an engineering report, occasionally an applicant will submit that because they have one for other reasons, but that is not something that we would typically request as part of the application package.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I don't have a sense of where, where the commission is, but perhaps he'd be more assured of your desired result if you were to provide one additional report, maybe a report back in a month or something like that, potentially just to set some of these concerns at ease. I'm familiar with this house. I've been in this house a lot. Like about 4 or 5 years ago, attic, all the bedrooms, that porch at the back, and I'm very familiar. I think I've stepped out on that metal roof, and it did seem like it was in reasonable shape. And you could, to save money, you could but perhaps entertain this technique that Stephen mentioned, but also have someone come along with a machine to re-straighten those seams out as well and recoat it, and it would look almost brand new still at the fraction of the cost of replacing it with new metal. But perhaps if you were to consider just providing some evidence, and it might allay some concerns from some of the commissioners at least. I don't know if you want to pursue that or not.
We could also break it into two things, the slate roof and then the metal roof as two separate items.
If he came back with more documentation of what's going on in the attic, I'd be a lot happier. But I mean, just at the face of it right now, I just want to replace my roofs. Without that documentation, no. I mean, we're the Historic Preservation Commission, not the Historic Change It Out Commission. So I like some evidence before we start allowing something like this to be removed.
I'd like to just speak. It's clear to me from the presentation that the applicant is very committed to this house and wants to do a worthy job. It is true that the comments that we've heard from the commission, frequently with a slate roof, we see two estimates, one to replace it with slate or to do it with asphalt shingles as you're proposing, and we understand the hardship. And frequently we do see photographs depicting the damage inside. And it's not that we don't believe you. I believe what you're telling us, that there is water intrusion in multiple places. I respect the fact that even your request to roof the porch roof going back in metal. I respect your thought process in doing this. I think that what we would like to see as a commission is just particularly related to the slate roof, just some visual, and yet we do hear people, which is exactly what you're saying, repeatedly, that have owned it perhaps longer than you. They have made repairs after repairs after repairs, but in fairness, we do need, that documentation to remove an original roof.
Any other comments? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I would like to move to continue. Give the applicant time to present more materials next month.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed.
So we'll process, I read through all the requirements for applying for a change, and I didn't see anything about the damage or the cost to repair damage or the continuance of damage due to a faulty element. So how do I go about submitting, and I'll do it, but how do I, what do you want? Is there going to be something written down that I can see? Photographs? You want me to, density of plaster that's been degraded because of water? I mean, what do you want?
Well, first of all, on the metal roof, I would like your roofer to take a look at this and see if
Yeah,
they-
that's-
oh, okay.
I'm with you there. I got that. That's
Okay,
the-
got
I'm-
that
I'm
part.
talking slate,
On the slate roof, the roof that since I've been on the commission involved with replacing slate, there was a lot of evidence of the water intrusion and the damage being caused. I mean, some pictures, statements by contractors, engineers, somebody, anybody.
Well,
That kind of thing, to kind of back it up and say, because, a leak or two is not going to destroy the house, but if it's leaking like the Titanic, it will. And we'd rather preserve the whole house than just the roof.
Oh, yeah.
But first, I'd like to see some kind of, how bad is bad on this? Because if it's one or two leaks, that could probably be fixed. If it's the whole roof is leaking everywhere, that's a whole nother matter.
Christine, you said that we've never had the
Okay.
requirement that we get any kind of engineering submission on a roof, right?
It's not something that we typically require, that's right.
Can you put up pictures of it, that's on the report of what the roof is
Sure.
that you have?
so how long does this process last? I get a leak today, fix it, leak a year from now, 2 years from now? I mean, at what point, what's the quantity of leaks that make the roof, 120 years old, past its useful life? I mean, that's my simple question, because everything has a useful life. And believe me, I wish the slate was in better shape. I would love to keep the slate. I love the look, but to me, it's just we're past that point.
And so I think what some of the commissioners are asking for, and I guess myself included, is just to have an engine. It's not expensive, and I don't think it's a staff requirement to apply for this. I think it's coming from some of the board members, just to have that report, to have someone certify and go up there, because you have a couple leaks now, but maybe they could be repaired. I'm not sure. I don't know the condition of this. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
well.
I can do that.
If I could add a comment also, we've seen over the years that there are many different folks that say that they're slate roof repair people, and excuse me, there's a big difference between a handyman type person that goes up there and someone that really knows how to work and repair the slate roof. And
Agreed.
from my standpoint, I'm just trying to encourage you to consider the original roof of the house. I can totally understand your burden as a homeowner and having the roof leaking, But I certainly hope you understand the commission's concern in trying to
Oh, I do.
work with you. So
I do.
That picture looks pretty extensive. It doesn't look like it's just one spot.
I didn't see those photographs actually in the packet. Were they in the packet? I'm looking through it right now, and I didn't see some of these.
They're attachment 6 in the staff report.
Sorry, where?
Attachment 6.
It doesn't look to me like it's just one or two spots. It looks like it's an endemic issue.
well, it's hard to tell from one photograph of the entire roof that, you know, it's, geez.
I'm allowed my opinion just as much as you're allowed yours.
I know.
There was one that you brought up initially. I don't know if that was Amy or Christine. But even though it's not required by staff, or not necessarily required by us, I think that when other people have come along to remove these roofs, they have had that evidence, something beyond just an estimate for a new asphalt shingle roof that showed this. I mean, I still didn't see that in the packet, but there's a lot to go along there and pull out, start pulling back tabs and slide these things out and not do collateral damage while someone's up there, so.
Right. Well, I've looked at all the submittals on Slate, and I didn't see any, I wasn't looking for it, but I didn't see any, to your point, evidence or statements as to the fact that it can't be repaired.
If I may interject, the design standards do say at Design Standard 6 regarding roofs that when a roof covering is too deteriorated to repair, replace it with a material to match the original or historically appropriate roofing materials. As the finders of fact, you all have to be satisfied that this roof is too deteriorated to repair, and I think that's what some of the commissioners are getting to, that additional evidence, whether it be through a report from your contractor or a reputable contractor used to dealing with these types of roofs, or evidence of damage, that's just what they're looking for, because they have to make an evidentiary finding here in order to be upheld if it ever gets appealed.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I think that your question's not unreasonable to ask for, what do I need to do to come back and have this
Right.
addressed and resolved? And I understand your question about the continuance of constant repairs. Obviously, you're making a commitment to this house, and
Right.
it's going to be your home, and it's not a flip. So
Right.
you are likely to be the one bearing the burden of continuous repairs. I think, from my standpoint, I do not think an engineering study would, it's not as if the roof is sagging and you need somebody to, but it's the tiles are failing. And again, an experienced tile roofer that could give us that documentation, show us some pictures from the attic, show us some water stains.
Okay.
Will make, and you know, we do hear a lot of these cases, and sometimes we have the documentation, sometimes we don't. But, you know, it is the prudence of our commission is to be guaranteed that this roof is not salvageable, and that, in reality, that the damage is so significant that you're going to be plagued with constant repairs. And I would be sympathetic to that.
Okay. Well, that's maybe subjective opinion of the contractor as well. Because
Well-
I have tiles slip all the time, and you can't,
Yes,
there may be
and I-
tiles there today that'll be gone tomorrow. So I can do that. There will be some subjective aspect to it. Because I'll be standing there talking to them about my roof,
Right.
and I'll be giving them my 2 cents. And so there's going to be some influence there.
But, you know, to Mr. Wilson's comment, I think that, you know, there are few people that have the skill and art of slate roofs, either to understand the history, the repair, either they, want to throw up a new roof for you, or they want to put a new slate roof up or something, I mean, there's just
No,
some,
I appreciate
that's a
all that.
master craftsman that can
Yeah,
even
no,
make
I
a
appreciate
repair.
it. I appreciate that. Okay.
So a continuation just of this, what is that, like, could the applicant come back as soon as next month at this point if it just stays open?
That'd be fine.
I believe you voted to continue it to your February meeting?
But I think that it was just a point of clarification he was requesting was,
Yeah.
what does that look like? Not continuation of constant, potential for constant repairs in perpetuity, but what specifically does this look like for him right now with reapplying or?
You would not need to reapply, sir. You just would need to come back to the next meeting with the evidence that they're asking for. So
Okay.
if the applicant believes that February 10th gives him enough time, certainly from the staff
Probably not.
side, that's.
Yeah, I would say not.
Related to your metal roof on the porch, I understand the visual that you're describing, and as ragged as it is, it could rot your fascia board, it's not sending it over the edge down. I live on Second Street, and house next door still had the original roof. It's not as old as yours, but as Stephen indicated, they did come in, and about that much portion was re-metalled, and they slipped up, and
Really? Okay.
it catches it. So, again, it's just, I would be just like you for a clean look when I was securing my house and saying,
Right.
no
Yeah.
more repairs and
Well, yeah.
go back.
I
But
don't-
that is an option.
Okay. That's, I got it. I just don't want to be Band-Aiding this roof. I mean, a
I know,
roof
and
is a psychological,
I
It's
hear
a
you.
thing. To
I
me,
hear
the
you.
house is whole and the roof is 50 years.
I'm sympathetic as an old house owner that, beyond roofs, there are always constant things going on with an old
Right.
house. And you do the best you can.
Right.
And I'm not unsympathetic to what you're up against.
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay, thank you.
And so it could be a date uncertain too. If it's not the February 10th, it could be the
Yeah,
March
it'll
meeting.
have to be because I'm not sure I can get somebody. Yeah, people are busy. So,
I
few
think the
weeks.
best course of action would be to continue it to your February date, just in case you can get information. If you cannot before that date, let staff know, and we can present that
Yeah, that'll work.
continuance.
Good idea.
Because just in case you can get it done, I know you want to get it done sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And just admit, if you walk down Second Street in the 200 block, that little bungalow has had that done. You're happy to walk up in
Okay.
my yard and study, just walk along the side and see what they've done, so you get a kind of a visual
Okay.
of that.
Good. Which block is that?
200.
200, okay, gotcha. Good, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2.
The applicant proposes to demolish the existing shed at the rear of the lot and construct a new accessory building in its place. Built circa 1923, this house is one of several in this district attributed to Edgar Hinton, who was the owner-manager of the Seashore Hotel in Wrightsville Beach. This is a bungalow with shingle siding. It features multiple gable-end roof with overhanging eaves and supporting brackets, a gabled dormer with overhanging eaves, and exposed rafters and supporting brackets. There were 2 casement windows in the dormer, which is not original to the house. An engaged front porch on the east side has been enclosed and features 6/6 sash windows. There are brick pillars on the porch, and there was a wrought iron railing and balustrade. There are partially exposed chimneys on the east and west sides, a small one-story gable bay on the west side, and a low cement wall along the front of the property. Staff notes that no accessory structures are identified on the National Register report, and the applicant stated the date of construction of the existing shed is unknown. A property card in city records dated 1977 notes that the house is covered in natural shake shingles and the windows are blown glass. The subject house is a contributing resource in the Carolina Heights Winoka Terrace Historic District overlay. Only that which can be seen from the right-of-way, excluding alleys, is subject to design review in the Historic District overlay. The applicant requests a waiver of the stay of demolition, approval to remove the existing shed, which you see here, behind the house, and approval to construct a new accessory building in its place. The east side and rear elevations of the new building would be partially visible from the North 20th Street right-of-way. Because of the location of the proposed accessory building to the existing house, visibility from Chestnut Street would be extremely limited. Here you can see a very close up. You can't see the existing shed that's back there, or at least I couldn't see the existing shed that was back there from the front of the house. On the rear alley-facing elevation, the ground floor would include custom-made sliding carriage doors oriented towards the alley and fiber cement board and batten siding in the color pearl gray. On the second story, there would be a wood balcony with white Anderson glass panel door and white Anderson Fibrex single-pane casement windows and natural cedar shake siding. On the east side elevation, the ground floor would have smooth Fibrex cement board and batten siding in pearl gray, the same Fibrex casement windows. On the second story, there would be the same cedar shake siding, and all windows proposed would have white trim. The front elevation, which again may not be visible from Chestnut Street, would have the same Anderson doors and windows and the same siding. The proposed roof would be architectural shingles in the color weathered wood. The roof would also have exposed rafter tails that would mimic those on the house. The new accessory building would be 52 feet from the rear of the house, 5 feet from the east side property line, and 5 feet from the rear property line. The accessory building would be 18 feet wide, 24 feet deep, and total 864 square feet. Staff notes that the existing house is 1.5 stories tall, but that the actual height of the house as measured from the grade to the peak of the roof is not provided. The proposed accessory building would be 2 stories and 20 feet 2 inches tall from the average grade to the peak of the roof, and the Land Development Code does prohibit accessory buildings from being taller than the principal building on the lot, so this building would need to be less tall than the existing house. Along the alley between North 20th and North 19th Street, there are numerous accessory buildings visible from North 20th Street that abut the alley and vary in height from 1 to 2 stories. The design standards note that in the Carolina Heights Winoka Terrace District, which developed after the turn of the century, the material and design of garages were more influenced by the eclectic revival architecture of the neighborhood and include a variety of types and wall finishes. The design of the new accessory building would be similar to the design of the existing shed in terms of the gabled roof and shake siding. This design would complement the design of the house. We would like to enter the staff report in its entirety into the record of tonight's proceedings, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Christine. Any questions for staff? You. Would the applicant like to come forward? Please state your name and address.
Hey everyone, Trey Saltman, 1922 Chestnut.
Anything you'd like to add to the report, or?
Not really, just happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Any questions?
I have one. I did see in the new structure, you're going to move it away from, it has to meet a new setback. Is that correct from the current one?
Yeah, it'll have to come back a little bit further.
And I know that the width is greater than the current shed.
Correct.
Is that going to move into your parking pad? Right now, you have 2 parking pad
Yeah,
spaces.
it's going to go right up to the edge, basically where the current fence line is. I don't know if that's in one of the photos, but we'll still have the 2 parking spaces in the back.
You will?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And on the height issue, it is a little a little shorter than the primary structure. I measured down, I guess that wasn't in the report, but it's going to be about 6 to 8 inches shorter than the primary structure. I think that's mainly due to the fact that the bottom floor in the existing house has higher ceilings than what this plan provides.
That was one of the conditions, I think, that was listed in the packet. So you're comfortable with your measurements that
Yes,
that
sir.
new accessory structure? Okay.
And to clarify, one of the condition 2 was that the second story is going to be natural cedar shake, clear coated, not painted, not the fiber cement like
Not
in the
fiber
application.
cement. Yeah, that was the architect's. He just put that on there as a mistake. It was a mistake. We're
Okay.
going to basically match the cedar shakes that are on the primary structure and also on the existing shed right now. Yeah.
I didn't understand your reply. They're going to match the ones, you mean the cedar shakes or
The
not the
cedar
color?
shakes. Yes, sir, yeah. The primary structure, the main house is all cedar shake
yeah.
as well, yeah.
I,
Just want to try to tie in as much as we can to the existing
right,
house.
Right. But they are going to be left natural or stained? or
Natural.
They're not gonna
Natural
be
cedar
painted?
color.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's great.
And then a light gray for the cement board, and white trim to match the house.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
We'll now open the evidentiary part of the meeting. Does anyone else wish to step forward and give some evidence? We will now close the evidentiary part of the meeting. Deliberation by the commission. Any comments, anyone?
Existing shed is like less than 20 years old, so it's nothing. I mean, it's just something like from a Home Depot shed or something. I think the plan looks pretty good for this structure and the structure alongside of it. I mean, it's in keeping with what's going on back in that alley.
Motion, anyone?
I move to approve with conditions the request for waiver of stay of demolition of an accessory structure and construction of a new accessory building at 1922 Chestnut Street, and to adopt the proposed findings of fact. Details as shown in the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statements contained in the application and supplemental materials, and statements made at the meeting are part of the request unless otherwise noted. This motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff report, including the findings of fact. The following conditions shall be applied to ensure compliance with the design standards, those set forth in the staff report 1 through 6. The proposed request with conditions complies with the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks. It is compatible with the materials, features, designs, context, and character of the historic buildings and the historic district in which it is located, and is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the R7 Historic District overlay as a whole. The applicable design standards are 1.6, Secretary of the Interior Standards, Standards 9 and 10, 2.5, Garages, Carriage Houses, and Accessory Structures, Standard 1, 4, and 5, 4.2, New Construction Infill, Standards 3 and 5, 6.2, Demolition, Standards 2, 3, and 8.
Second, anyone?
Second.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 3.
The applicant requests after-the-fact approval for demolition of a rear porch and construction of a new porch, construction of a rear addition, and other after-the-fact changes noted by staff. I'm arguing with the mouse tonight, I apologize. Staff notes that the applicant did appoint a new agent, so Mr. Engel will be speaking tonight rather than the agent in your application materials. The applicant seeks after-the-fact approval for demolition without a stay. In addition, staff notes that a shed and exterior curtain rods have been installed and fencing changes have been made without a certificate of appropriateness. The Yarborough House was built circa 1900 and is a front gabled 1.5-story house with a hipped roof porch supported by Tuscan columns. There are decorative shingles and a central window in the front gable. The central entry features a 2-light transom. The house is a contributing resource in the Historic District residential, and design review is required on all sides of the building and site. In response to a citizen complaint, code enforcement staff determined that work was being conducted on the house without a certificate of appropriateness, and a stop work order was issued. The applicant requests approval after the fact for the work already done. The porch and a portion of the porch has already been constructed, and they are also seeking approval for an 80-square-foot addition on the rear of the house. The applicant states that the new porch would be screened in and the roof line raised up as compared to the now demolished porch, and that the roof line would follow that of the house. A portion of the porch is clearly visible from Church Street. On a site visit in November, it was observed that the new porch decking has been installed over the old porch decking. And the applicant stated that they did not have any photographs of the now demolished porch, though the outline of the old porch and framing is clearly visible on the exterior wall. The location of the old porch roof with that window that you see on the right side of the screen implies that the porch may not have been original to the house, though the date of construction is unknown, so it may have achieved some historic significance in its own right. We did find an old MLS photograph that shows the real porch that has been demolished. This photo is not dated, but the property was last sold in 2014, so it could be from that time frame. The New Hanover County tax card from 2021 shows the house with a rear porch measuring 5 feet deep and 20 feet wide, and no deck is indicated behind the porch. In justification for the lack of setback from the rear property line, the applicant stated that a now removed deck was only 4 inches from the rear property line and submitted this photo demonstrating that. The deck appears to abut the existing rear fence, and there is no record of a certificate of appropriateness having been issued for construction of a deck at this address, and no deck is visible in the MLS photo that we found. The room addition would be under the same roof as the porch and would be 11 feet 4 inches in width and 7 feet 3 inches in depth for a total of 80 square feet. The complete width of new construction would be 20 feet 6 inches under the roof plus the exposed steps. The overall height would be 17 feet 3 inches from average grade to the peak of the roof. It appears that the new porch would abut the fence. The application materials state that the setback is either 22 or 21 inches from the rear property line. Staff notes that the construction and demolition that has already occurred was done without a building permit or a demolition permit. An incomplete application for a building permit was filed on December 16th, though the required plans were not submitted. And as of yesterday, the application is still listed with New Hanover County as incomplete, so compliance with building code still remains a concern. Again, we noted several other changes to the property that were for which a certificate of appropriateness has not been issued. The date of construction of the existing shed is unknown, and the setbacks materials are not known. The New Hanover County tax card indicates that the shed is 64 square feet. The roof materials are that which is proposed for the new addition on the house. The front gable design includes a front window, decorative side windows, a steeply pitched roof, and exposed rafter tails. The siding and trim appear to match that of the house, however, the material specifications are unknown. The front of the shed also includes a metal awning and decorative trim in the fascia. There are also no certificates of appropriateness on file for changes to the fence. The existing fence that you see there in the April 2019 Google Street View image appears to be wood, painted white, with a metal gate in the center. And it also appears that the existing fence today is slightly shorter than the fence that was there in 2016, which you see there on the left. And a gate has been installed that doesn't appear to have been there previously. Staff also made note of these metal curtain rods that have been mounted around the upper perimeter of the front porch, again, with no record of a COA having been issued for those. The setbacks of the already constructed porch are 41.5 inches from the east side property line, 21 or 22 inches from the rear property line, 14 feet 1 inch from the west side property line, and the distance between the porch and the shed has not been provided. The lack of setback from the rear property line may not allow for proper maintenance of the fence or the porch materials. Based on the drawings, it is not clear exactly how the new roof line would actually align with the existing house. There are multiple roof line configurations presented by the applicant, and the drawings from various elevations conflict with each other and do not appear to display the house in its actual configuration. These drawings show multiple roof lines and do not seem to show the existing roof line of the house. No new gutters or downspouts are proposed, and as you see here, the existing roof lines of the historic house here are not shown on any of the drawings submitted by the applicant. The proposed roofing materials on the porch would match the roof on the shed rather than the roof on the house. The existing window that is covered up in this picture on the west side of the house would be reused for the room addition. The new construction would include a 6/12 pitch gabled end roof with exposed structural supports, union corrugating ribbed 5E crimped steel roof panels in the color silver. The narrative does indicate a skylight would be included in the room addition. However, no details or drawings are provided for a skylight. Siding would be wood clapboard with a 5-inch reveal, the design and color of which would match the existing siding on the house, and 4-inch wood trim to match the color and dimensions of the existing house, including the corner boards. A wood unpainted piano key top screen panel to shield the HVAC unit is also proposed. It would be 7 feet 4.5 inches tall, 5 feet 8 3/8 inches wide, and each slat would be 1 foot tall. Also proposed are wood columns, wood rear entry steps and railing, wood handrail, wood balusters, and the porch ceiling is supposed to be wood beadboard painted white, and screening would be fiberglass mesh in the charcoal color. Skirting under the porch would be lattice, wood lattice, unpainted, and the height of the deck would be, or the decking would be 2 feet 9 inches from grade to the top of the decking. Can lights and ceiling fan are noted in the narrative, but again, no details on those have been provided. In addition to the current window that would be moved and reused, 2 wood 6-pane true divided light, wavy glass, 34-inch by 33-inch windows, and a repurposed door are also proposed for the room addition. The porch entry would be a screen-tight 5-bar, 32-inch wide, 80-inch tall screen door, and some of the specifications for that have not been provided, including the handle, screen color, and paint color. Because the plans were not submitted with the building permit, whether these footers would comply with the building code is still in question. The design standards do note that decks should be located in rear yards, and that decks could be contemporary yet compatible with the house, and also state that underpinning is usually painted after it has weathered. The footers here may not be adequate for a building addition. Again, it hasn't been reviewed, and an inadequate building foundation could damage the historic materials on the house in the long term, which would be inconsistent with the design standards for building additions. We would like to enter the staff report in its entirety into tonight's, the record of tonight's proceedings, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Christine. Any questions for staff? Thank you. Would the applicant like to present?
Hi there. My name is Patrick Engel at 214 Church Street. And first off, I just want to apologize because totally out of my element. We originally thought just we were in the neighborhood where we didn't need to get the approvals for anything in the backyard, and that's totally on us. I'm so sorry. As far as the shed goes, the deck, I used a contractor to do all the footers for me, and then I've been doing mostly all of it myself. And I just wasn't aware that I needed permits and the things that I did, so I've been trying. As soon as I got the email from Ivy back in December, we stopped all work, and we've been complying perfectly. And I do just want to make sure everything is to historic standards. We love the historic district, that's why we're here. So any questions you have, I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to change aspects that you may not like and make sure everything's historically compliant.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Any questions?
Do you have a building permit for the work?
No, I don't. I've applied for it and I've submitted the work. The contractor who had done it for me, he's kind of quit and gone AWOL, so now I'm retroactively doing that. And honestly, we'd be happy to even scratch the addition if that's something the committee doesn't want. Really just wanting to protect the siding now that the roof is gone. But trying to get the permit, yes, sir.
I'm not quite sure why we're here if he's not got a permit to do the work.
Why we're here if he's not gotten a permit?
At this point, if there's not a permit to do the work,
Is it necessary for a deck? I'm asking because I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
that's what I'm at, I think you said that, that there is a setback from the property that was not adhered to.
Well, there's no minimum required setback in this district. That can be determined by this board. What is in question is whether the lack of setback would be compliant with the building code, and I am certainly not qualified to testify about the building code. Some applicants choose to come to the HPC first, get their design approved, and then go forward with their building permit application because they know the design has been approved. In this case, things went a little out of order because a lot of the construction's already been done. The inclusion of the room addition is of particular concern to me because that would be in addition to the house. An unenclosed structure is a little bit different. So with everything being under the same roof, I have concerns that this may not be, what's already been built may not be compliant with the building code. And again, I'm not qualified to say it is or is not, but I have concerns about that.
I don't think we are either.
As far as I know, none of us are experts on the building code. I know many of you know a lot more than I do, but I would feel more comfortable knowing whether a 21 or 22-inch setback from the rear property line is compliant before the design is approved.
I did call every zoning site, and they said there was no problem with that setback in the Historic Society. I've called the city, the county, the state, et cetera. So, because it's an open-air structure, there's no fire code, with the Historic District, everything's built along every line. But I did give more setback than there was previously of that deck that I didn't build. We only moved in a year and a half ago, so all of these things are new to us. But as far as setback goes, it's at least in all recordings, I looked through everything, there was no violation.
Was the deck, the current deck
Yes, sir.
there when you bought the house?
Yes, sir. And we kept that. There's the brick underlayment with the existing decking boards. We kept that. We just put the 2x10s over top. So we've tried to keep everything historical, just the porch roof was falling in. It was totally dry rotted,
There
which is
did,
why.
yeah, there did look like there was some rot on that.
Yes, sir. Some ants had eaten away all of it, and it was starting to fall, and tore it off so my wife wouldn't get injured. But I apologize for that as well, retroactively doing that.
And since you've made all those calls relating to the decking, I'm really shocked that you can build right up to the property line, a deck. And it's just specific because dwellings, just like we ruled on earlier, that new outbuilding that was coming down, they had to meet a new setback from the property line.
Yes, sir.
And I'm very perplexed that
It had
anything
more to
could
do
go
with
right up
fire.
to the property line.
It had
and
more to do with
particularly
fire, is what I
elevated.
learned. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk.
Particularly elevated.
Right.
Because when you're on your deck, you're going to be looking down on your neighbors.
Right.
Can you go back to that slide that shows the decking and, yeah, that? Is the fence on your property?
I'm not sure, to be honest. That was before my time. I think it's the property, I think it is, and I think it's on the property line owned by my rear neighbor. They own that entire length of land. And their shed right behind me is only 15 inches from the fence. I don't know if that helps, but it's just the lines are very
But it seems clear in the research that that shed, current shed, maybe wasn't approved, nor was the fence. And that's not your fault.
I didn't build it, yes, sir, I
But it's not as if the shed met the standard that the commission set when
Oh, I
it
meant
was
my
approved.
neighbor's shed as well.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they're all within a few inches from the fence.
Well, it's not shown to us the age of that and
Yes, sir.
whether it was grandfathered in, but
I wish I could give that to you.
Was there any survey taken of your lot?
I just used the measurements from the county
Okay.
lines, and it matched up pretty closely. If you look at what is that, the further side from this photo, the houses are built within the 4 feet from each other. The line runs right down the middle.
So this fence back there is your neighbor's fence?
Yes, sir.
So let's say they decided to put it back on their property by a foot or so for maintenance. Your post would almost be in, or possibly even in your neighbor's property.
If they set it back that far, yes, sir.
Okay.
But But we don't know that. And honestly, the footers, they were 16-foot posts. They're 4 feet in the ground with concrete in the base, and they're perfectly level and aligned. So I was trying to adhere to all strict building codes. I'd be happy to get the permit as well, but, and I'd be happy to remove the addition if that's something the Historic Society is afraid of. The addition would be resting on existing brick pillars, foundational supports. There is a photo in the documents that show, you can kind of see the brick in the bottom left corner, but where the existing porch was, those existing pillars are there. And that's where the addition was going to be resting on, with about a foot overhang from those pillars on structural 2x10s. Right there, yeah, thank you.
Christine, could you go back to the slide from the side view from the driveway at the end where the door, where you enter? I'm having trouble. A portion of that's just solid, but the decking is all open. Is that correct? It's a little bit.
Currently it is, yes, sir. That
No,
decking was going to be covered.
In your proposed plan.
In the proposed plan, that would all be a roof right there, covered porch.
It was a mock-up of the.
Yeah.
This one, these. That's just, I don't understand what's going on. Is that a window and there's some
So
siding?
this is an
It's solid?
extension right there. Where that left fence is where the current house ends. Those two new windows, those are the proposed addition. Where those two windows are.
Two new windows.
Two windows?
Are you saying two windows?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but one has siding inside of it. Is
That's just the 3D view. I apologize. It's looking through it.
Okay, but that's just open to the deck and the open room on the
No,
other side?
that would be the addition, the enclosed addition. That would be part of the square footage, which we'd get the codes for.
But is it living space or outdoor space?
Yes, sir. Living space.
Living.
Conditioned like interior.
Yes, yes, sir. And so that would be a hallway right there where that screen door is into the big covered space. And if the committee decides if they would approve just the porch and deck, I would be happy to remove that addition. I wasn't planning on it. I threw that in after I knew I was going to have to come to this commission. I figured if I'm going to have to do all the permits and codes, I might as well throw some square footage. So the plan was originally to just have the open deck and the open porch. So that's why I'm very happy going back to that if that's.
Well, again, I think we've all admitted that we're not building code people, but I would think an addition that has living space, particularly as well as decking, would have to have some review by.
A permit, yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I thought too. I didn't think the deck and the porch would need it because I was just replacing it. The addition is new, which is why we put in the building permit application for this addition. That wasn't part of the original plan when I was doing this. I only did it for this commission.
And so you have a building permit application in with the county, and that's not been issued. Has it been stopped by them or flagged? Did they need a resubmittal?
I haven't gotten any updates from them. I haven't even been asked for extra information. And that was the agent who has now gone away. He was the one handling that. So I submitted another one last week when I found out he is now gone. And I've put in the proposed plans, the scope of work, all of that, and they haven't responded yet, so I'm not sure.
Oh, it'll take a couple weeks.
Okay, good to
I'm trying to, I can't find a starting point. Maybe the starting point is, like Michael, it wouldn't be in the building code about setback requirements for a deck, but the city of Wilmington doesn't, do I understand right? The city of Wilmington doesn't have a setback that this,
In the HDR and in the HD and HDMU, setbacks are determined by the Historic Preservation Commission. It's different in the overlays, but in this zoning district, setbacks are determined by this board.
When I built my house, there was no setback, but there had to be a distance between a structure on my property and the one next to it.
yeah.
So depending on what was there, but you had no required setback from your property line.
I thought that was weird too. I spent a lot of time looking for a number, yeah.
I think speaking for myself, excuse me, I'm having a hard time with your drawings trying to understand exactly what you want to do. The drawings are inconsistent, and it just helps us to try to understand what you want to do. And since all
quickly
this
walk you
was
through
done, after the fact and with no building permit, I'm like Christopher, it's a little hard, for us to understand what to do.
Yes, sir.
Initially, it seems like there are a lot of things incorrect for the HPC, but it's kind of hard to tell that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so.
Could I just quickly walk you through it then? I'd like to propose scratching the addition because I do think that throws everything off.
Well, but your drawings are matters of record, and they have to be accurate, when you
Yes, sir.
submit them, and whether you do them or have someone else do the drawings.
I did these,
Yeah,
so I'm going to hire someone professional to do
but-
them next.
But I'm just saying that it would make it much easier for us to kind of
Yes, sir.
visualize what it is that you want to do.
Well, I know in the conditions that they would need the roof line drawings fixed. And so honestly, if the deck itself would be approved with the porch and no addition, the only thing that it would be is it would have the original siding, it would have the metal roof following the roof line up to a point and then breaking down. There'll be about a foot gap from the top. In the current roof, I didn't do it in these drawings by accident, I just missed that. I have all the dimensions and measurements. Can you go to the old porch roof that you found? Yeah, right, back. Go back 3. You can't see it. It's not a gable, it's got a little hip in it. It's not a pure gable. So what I was gonna do is just go up to where it separates and then come down, so there'd be about a 2-foot gap right there. I'm just following the roof line going into the fascia for that roof line. So it'll be lower than that existing roof line right here. There is an additional structure that's 2-story. I was just keeping it to this. So the plan is to follow the roof line, do a metal gable roof, and just an open deck.
So to your point, you do intend to hire someone that can draw this and dimension it and make it a little more appropriate. It's hard to go with the verbal
Yes,
things
sir.
in our case right now.
If you look from the southern drawing, that is the best representation of it, the southern dimensions. It's,
I think you need to kick back and start over and maybe work with the city on some setbacks if possible, and then get us something that's a little bit more concrete. It's what you're exactly going to do instead of verbally telling us what you're going to do.
well, I would argue y'all demand the setbacks. Y'all decide it based on that.
Right.
So it would be great if we could approve the setback because those pillars are 4 feet in the ground in concrete. And I will get these professional drawings to you and I will submit them. And it was based on a condition. Could I see the southern architectural drawings real quick? So this would be it. You can't see the addition in this. This is my existing house, and the door is to the right of that one window you see. This is exactly what it would look like. The dimensions are accurate per this drawing. Like this is what you'd be approving without the addition. Like perfectly.
Is it intended for the roof to be asymmetrical there? It seems you have a king post in there that's, that would normally be in the middle of the roof. I mean, the roof, the center point of the roof is not in the center of the span.
Yes, sir. That was because that left span is longer than the right side. There's that hip, and I was not going to follow the hip. I was just going to come down from that point. So that was intentional.
So I think the general aesthetics we typically would, anyone on the commission, any version of the commission would like to see would probably be something, a symmetrical roof where the ridge was in the center of the span.
Okay.
And you can make things work with how it relates to the house, and probably not such an open gable like that. That doesn't quite fit the aesthetic.
What are the recommendations of y'all closing it in and putting lap or?
Yeah, I think if you were to maybe, so that's effectively a gable right there, and if you were to use something to,
Yes, sir.
some of the material that's already on the house, is there any like shake or
There
something
is
on
shake
this?
in the front of the house, yes, sir.
So maybe you would use something like that, but I guess maybe the larger thing right now, to your, as you requested, is for us to maybe make some kind of a ruling or statement on the setback. It does, setback, I think, doesn't really serve you or your neighbors super well right now, so I think we need to at least state something about that for the record at this point. Then you can use that for your drawing for something new and come back with
Yes, sir.
with a different design. So and then also, so you do not intend ever to go forward with this idea of enclosing something, or not ever,
I will
but
not. I
in
think
the
it's-
short term, you're not going to do anything with enclosing.
It's too
them.
complicated. I would rather move forward with a shed. Currently, all the existing siding is exposed, and the door, rain and leaves are coming through, so I really would like to get a roof on it ASAP, so whatever it takes to get that. And especially now that the porch is exposed, water can go down into the foundation, which is my fault, I know.
Yeah. Well, maybe get some metal, just some inexpensive metal from Lowe's, and bend it and tuck it up there to do something temporary, maybe some window flashing that you could
Yeah.
spread out just to do that, a tarp, a piece of
I've
plastic,
done
anything
tarps and duct tape, yeah.
to keep things temporarily away from water from inside.
Yes,
And
sir.
I don't think we want to necessarily, as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't want to dissuade you from an addition. Sure, you should be able to do an addition if you want. It shouldn't be complicated. Just need to do the building permit and make sure you get the building, even for a deck. You have to have the building permit approved for the deck, even if you did that all by itself.
Okay.
Because you have wind load, uplift, where hurricane winds
Yes,
that
sir.
tend to come through, want to lift that off. So you need to have someone checking off on that, so this roof assembly doesn't go on your house or flip into a neighbor's
Yeah.
yard or something like that.
That's
So
important.
you will need a building permit no matter what, even if it is just a deck. So you've got to pursue that. But maybe first, I think if we did like I said, something with that setback would be probably a way to move along with this right now.
Well, particularly just, this deck or the foundation's going to be supporting some sort of room, utility room inside, as well as just decking, it seems. What is the structure to the left of the drawing we're looking at that's under A, not drawn over A to the window, but what is that structure?
To the left of the deck,
Yes.
that is the house. That's an addition. That's a room under the main house. You remember there's two roof lines? It comes over to the
Okay,
left
so
some.
well above this is going to be another.
Yes, sir.
Well, perhaps, would you be open for a continuance if the HPC wanted to do that, to allow you to get some of these things in order, to come back with, rather than saying yay or nay, and maybe we address the setback as part of that continuance, but I don't know how the other commissioners feel about that.
I don't feel comfortable setting a setback without a survey and some information, because if we approve a setback and it is, like you said,
We don't know the
that
property line.
fence is not correct, I just think that's beyond our purview.
If we don't know the survey line, the marks of the property lines, yeah, I agree.
Well, it depends on if we're going to make the setback relative to the property line, which is typically what it's set, is how we
Just
measure
whatever the
that,
property
and
line is.
regardless of where the fence would be, but I agree, I think a survey or some sort of,
I just think it's beyond our purview, and I think the city needs to get involved in that, I would think.
Just for us to be able to visualize it too, to see it
Yes.
on a plan view, to see how it fits with maybe something else on the adjacent properties, and what are the other setbacks for adjacent properties, and, or not setbacks, but where did they kind of build things? What's that fabric look like? That aspect of the fabric of the neighborhood look like? And as far, just to aid you a little bit, that your couple of existing posts that are in the ground and purportedly embedded in concrete, and you can abandon those, just cut them off as low as you can and then just get new ones. The ones that are existing near the house, if you do keep those, you could excavate out, let the inspector come and see what those look like, and maybe they're good enough as they are, but if they're embedded in concrete, don't try to remove those, just, if they're inside of your property line, you could just cut them as low as possible and leave them in the ground, and then set everything shallower, closer to the house.
I agree. I think we should have a continuance on this to resolve some of these issues, a better design, and then make sure we know what we're doing with the survey.
That's just a lot of money we're talking for surveys and everything, so I would need a
Well, it's
survey.
for your protection in a way in the long run, because if that deck is not on your property, you could lose your deck.
Yeah.
Well,
You can
and-
go to the tax office, you can go to the New Hanover County Tax Office and look at their survey on their GIS and look and measure, you can scale it
That's what I did to measure this one and all these
and get that
measurements.
scale set, and that's typically good with zoning, with getting building permit approvals.
Well,
You
that's
don't
what I did
necessarily
for
need a
this setback.
surveyor,
I did this, sir.
but to note it precisely, at least on something for us to
Yes,
see,
for
to see
the fence
exactly
line.
what that property line is, which we're not exactly sure what it is, but
I can do that with the lines and
Surveyor
showing
to
the
do it.
fence and-
With enough properties that have been sold in the city, and not getting a survey is really a mistake, because so many things change in the city. And with the property lines, and somebody said something in 1950 or this or that, and
Yeah.
you're really playing with a lot of money that could be
Yeah.
wrong.
Well, historic district, everyone's encroaching on everyone on a lot of property lines.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Doesn't make it right.
But, some of that's been grandfathered in to say that
I know.
that sort of thought process continues, that you don't know. I don't know if any of your neighbors are here
They
to
are.
speak.
Yes, sir.
Well, to speak, to say, well, it's okay with me if the deck comes up that
Oh,
close.
every
But-
neighbor I
but
talked to
they're
said
the
it was
cur- They're the
okay.
current owners, and the deck will be there. And I actually put a fence, I'm in the historic district, close to the foundation of my neighbor, and it all had to be temporary. so it could not impede any
Yes, sir.
maintenance on their house. And that would be the same, I mean, you don't want a temporary deck back there that you had to remove so that the fence could be maintained or replaced. So, you know, there are just so many questions, and we hear you ready to bow to change, but we're not here to vote that way. You know, it really needs to be just what we see and what you're proposing.
Yes, sir.
And like Chris said, I think it's perfectly reasonable that you could have an outdoor living space. But you need to show us what that is, and I personally feel like it needs a reasonable setback. I think that I just would speak for any neighbor that
Well, it's
adjoining
it's
property owner
width-wise.
that
It was
would.
it's very walkable, width-wise at least. I
You mean, not walkable from the back of the deck to the fence?
sir.
It's right up against it, isn't it?
Well, no, 21 inches is me.
I know, but that's,
Well, it's workable, manageable is what I was saying. But I hear your concerns. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, you said you measured your lot back. Where did you start? At the city sidewalk? What was your
No,
start?
and that's what I'll do. I was measuring the sides based on, I wasn't doing from the back, which is why I think that's a great suggestion.
Is it possible for you to communicate with the neighbor across the fence to see what they did when they put the fence in?
It's feasible, yes, sir.
Yeah, see if it's like, maybe they think they got 2 feet behind. I have no idea where that
I think
property
they've lived there a
line is.
long time. They might have installed it, so.
Okay.
So I said, technically, for a city review like this, you don't need the survey, but in your own best interest, and the smarter thing to do to protect yourself is to drop like $600 on a survay, too.
I
you
know.
So that's up to you, that part of it.
Well, I started this not knowing that I needed everything. Yeah, so I'm learning.
well, I certainly support bringing this item back next month and having an application and drawings that we better understand in which to rule upon. I know there's some other issues in this request, which the curtains and the rotting, there were some other things. Shall we just address all of those when it comes back
Yes,
next
yeah.
month?
Perhaps you could sit down with staff, or once you get your packet together, and just let them kind of look at what you're planning to present to make sure
I did that
it's covered.
twice,
Okay.
yeah. So I'm trying. I am trying. Okay, so definitely rear property line is a big concern. Building permit is a big concern.
I would
Those
just
are the main
rethink
things.
your setback, you know, what you can live with, what's going to give you adequate space. But
Yes, sir.
I think in time you'll find that you'll want that separation.
Well, there's no yard to begin with, so literally all the living space we can
Well,
get is.
I know, but, you know, fortunately, your roof is going to shed the water on your property. But, you know, the issue with something constructed and close to a property line is water sheds onto someone else's property. And though they might be happy with your decking touching their
Right.
fence, if it rots in 2 years after water's hitting it, you know, I mean.
Well, I'd be
there-
happy
there's
to do
much
gutters and things like that as well.
There's much to consider.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can walk the historic district and look at the aesthetic, kind of get a sense of other similar projects, try to keep things reasonably in keeping with that.
Well, my neighbor has the exact same porch 2 doors down, and it was a copy of theirs, so that's why I was just doing that. So I know it's mostly setback and building permits are the main concerns, correct? Just to get a clear understanding.
Well, there's a concern with the roof being.
And
not
some
being
working
even.
drawings that we
Yeah.
can
Right,
look
right.
at that say exactly what you're going to do.
Yes, ma'am.
Make a motion that we,
Haven't had
We're not done yet.
Oh.
We haven't done the evidentiary portion.
before we do any.
As far as the shed and everything goes, I mean, those have been there. Can we just get those approved? Because I don't know what we would do about that. They've been there. I hate items like that hanging over.
I have no problem with the shed.
well, what are you planning to, what what is the urgency with the approval of the shed
It's
tonight?
just hanging over my head. It's been a very stressful process, this one.
I'm sure.
Getting
I'm
shut
sure.
down. I've lost a lot of building materials, and I'm going to lose a few thousand more, so it's just,
Well,
it's been a pretty terrible process.
You know, we've had.
My fault, but-
Related to the shed, I think the, you know, that overhang over the door is not appropriate to that structure.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
myself,
you.
And I know you didn't do that, but
He said the overhang to the.
the little
to
roof?
the little
Oh.
metal roof that, we had that last month on a house. It covered windows with that sort of thing. And
How long do you think it might take you to revisit all this? Next month, the month after that? I mean,
I'm going to have to pay someone to do it because it's pretty over my head, so. Really, finding a good contractor takes a long time. I'll try to have it ready for next month because, like I said, the house is definitely getting some wear on it. So,
We would need the revised materials in time to meet the legal advertising deadline in order to publish them with the staff report. So that would be a week before the meeting it gets published, and we'd have to back it up at least a week before that unless you don't want any information in the staff report.
can we continue for 2 months?
That's between you and the
I was
applicant.
asking if that's okay. I
I'd
mean,
like to continue until it's done, so if we can make it work for the next one, that'd be
Okay.
great. If we can't, please continue it.
Well, what we can do is continue it, and then as you come, well, that would make it tough for staff. You could tell them that you're not ready, but
If you would continue it to a date certain, that would be helpful. You could continue it to March 10th. And then if it's not ready on March 10th, he can let me know and we'll let you know, and that he's asked for a continuance, that wouldn't be a problem.
So how much time would I have before the February date?
You have about a week and a half before the February date.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that.
all right.
Okay.
continue it to March.
that's what I think she was
Can we,
saying.
can we take some pressure off and just say something about the shed? Did you build the shed? Was
No,
it there?
sir. I did.
It was there?
Yes, sir.
I don't have any problem with the shed.
Well, we have to have the evidentiary part of the meeting first, so if we want to
Excuse me, if everyone could please speak into their microphone. I know that you guys are talking amongst yourselves, but since it's recorded, the microphones are needed in order for the recording to be picked up. Thank you.
I think we need to delay some of this to the commission deliberations because we still have to go through the evidentiary part, and then we can call him
Oh,
back
right.
up when we decide when we're deliberating.
Yep.
Do you have anything else to add right now?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to the evidentiary portion of the meeting. Does anyone wish to come up and speak? So we'll close that part, and now we can have our commission deliberations. So if we're going to do you want to discuss the shed and any other parts that we can approve now? And
Yeah, I would like to try to approve some of it now, the shed, the HVAC unit, the fence changes, the exterior curtain rods. At least we could approve that much while the applicant works on the other part.
I've got no problem with that, it's just the other. I feel like we're going to get into a bad situation if we're approving something with very little drawings and no city setbacks, and they're going to spend a lot of money, and it could be bad.
so where are we with the shed?
I'm fine with it.
Fine with it?
That shed was there when he bought the house.
Curtains?
I'm not,
And the
What is the deal with the curtains? Is that a decoration or is that historic? I don't like it myself, but I don't know what the precedent is one way or the other. I mean, are there curtains allowed? Does anybody know?
Seen them on a number of houses, I think, mostly.
I don't
it's-
know. But that's
It
fine.
seems to be a trend.
curtains.
Something that's permanent,
Yeah.
I don't think, that,
It's just,
So does HPC have purview over curtains?
The curtains themselves, I would say probably not, because those are temporary. The rods have been mounted to the building, so that's a different issue. So what you would be approving is not necessarily the curtains, but those rods that have been affixed to the building.
And when someone would normally want to put such rods and curtains or no curtains on, would that be a bypass item where they would come to staff and try to do something with that? Or?
Probably we could consider that a minor exterior alteration, and we could approve that at the bypass level. Even the shed, if the dimensions provided by that I see from the county tax card, even that could have been a bypass approval because it doesn't have a dimension greater than 10 feet. That said, there's no record of any application having been made for any of it.
The rod related to the curtains, I would rather not have seen the rod myself and just the curtains. You know, I find the rod running below the, you know, somewhat, it seems like it could have been behind this beam here on the front and sides. That's just my concern. I have no problem with curtains on a porch, but the location of this is.
Then we get into material, is the, you know, whatever, is that wrought, I mean, what is that? Piping, looks like plumbing piping that they put up there to.
water pipe.
So is that appropriate? I mean, isn't that plumbing piping that the curtain rod is? That's what it looks like.
You know, if it was hidden, but, you know, that's just my issue with the placement of the rod in this, not.
And if staff or code enforcement were walking down the street, would they see this and flag it? And
Well, it's very visible from the sidewalk, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I feel like the curtain, the rod should be up behind the girder and kind of unseen, but just because everything else is in front of this commission right now with all the other issues in the back of the house, I personally just don't feel like getting involved in ruling on, because they're everywhere, they're all over the place, and I don't want to start.
I don't think we need to open that can of worms.
It's a staff, you know, code enforcement issue. It's not a commission issue, in my opinion.
Well,
I mean,
you know, we could look at this almost like the ring bells or security cameras on the side. You know, it was, the wording went out that it shouldn't be so obtrusive. You know, it needs to be painted to blend in with the siding or not the ring, but we've had issues with security cameras on the side, and they were made to paint them, so they didn't stand out. But anyway, I tend to go along with Chris in terms of there's just so many issues. I mean, this is an easy change, or the shed is a little, it doesn't sound like anybody has a concern about the shed and that overhang over the door, but those are little things compared to the big project around back.
Yeah, I agree with Kathleen that we would just, I don't have any issue at all with the shed, and nor the fence or the air conditioning unit. That's all I really personally feel like getting involved in right now on this. There are so many other things to deal with later on.
Does anyone want to make a motion? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Item 3. I will take a stab at it. I move to approve with conditions the request for after-effect approval of installation of a shed and fencing changes and the HVAC unit. Shed, the installation of a new HVAC unit, the shed, and the fencing changes And I make a motion to recommend that the curtain rods be an administrative bypass and a continuance on the approval of the construction and the setback on the property, and the changes at 214 Church Street, and to adopt the proposed findings of fact. Applicant will return with further detailed information to the commission in the March meeting. Details as shown on the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statements contained in the application and supplemental materials and statements made at this meeting are part of the request unless otherwise noted. The motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff report, including the findings of fact. The following conditions will be applied to ensure compliance with the design standards, those set forth in the staff report 1 through 15. For items that have been approved and those to be continued. The proposed request partially complies with the Wilmington Design Standards for historic districts and landmarks, is compatible with the materials, features, design, context, and character of the historic district and the historic district in which it is located. It is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the historic district residential as a whole. The applicable design standards, 1.6, Secretary of the Interior Standards 2, 4, 9, and 10, 2.6, decks and swimming pools, Standard 2.6, 3.2, General Building Standards, Windows and Doors, Standard 1, 3.4, Underpinning Standards 1 and 3, 3.6, Porches and Entrances, Standard 2, 6.2, Demolition Standards 2, 3, 6 through 8.
Does anyone second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes 6-1. Thank you.
This one will be easier. This is our first meeting of the year. Of course, it's time for the annual report. The reporting period was the previous fiscal year, so it ended in June. We are in fiscal year, a new fiscal year from the information that you will see here tonight. And I'm just going to hit the highlights from the report. We did see a pretty steady trend of annual cases. In fiscal year 21, we processed 54, which is on par with what we did in 2020. Of course, we had a bit of a peak in 2019 after Florence, Hurricane Florence. We saw a lot of cases come in that year. So pretty much holding steady there. And the same is true with our administrative bypass permits, pretty close to what we did in 2020. We are on track. We just hit the halfway point for the current fiscal year, and we're on track to about hit that number again. So that's holding pretty close from 2019 to today, really. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on was the demolition by neglect. We've seen really positive improvements in this area. We have, in the reporting period, 9 new demolition by neglect cases identified, and 33 cases were brought into compliance. So that having 33 cases brought into compliance is a great improvement over previous years, and we're very pleased to see that. And there are 49 cases that are still being monitored. If you're familiar with this process, it's a very long, drawn-out process. So the 49 cases are still being monitored is not surprising, and it's, like I said, vastly improved over the previous 2 reporting periods. So very pleased with that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you all might have about the annual report.
Were you able to determine how you were to achieve more of the success stories in 2021? It's great, by the way.
It is
Yeah, it's
great. Thank you. Partially, we've been able to achieve that success because we have Cynthia Roush, our dedicated code enforcement officer. She's highly experienced in doing these kinds of inspections, and she's been really able to work with applicants and catch things earlier and really help bring people into the fold more quickly. As we... This is a random story, but a gentleman called me today from the Raleigh area. He wants to buy a house here in town, and he said, I've never met the gentleman. He said, I went in to see a house with my realtor, and the ceiling is caving in. There's roof pouring in through the bedroom window, and he gave me the address, and I was able to turn it in. So sometimes it's fortuitous.
Right.
I had no idea that was going on. So, but really, a lot of credit is due to Cynthia's efforts and her ongoing work
great.
there.
Well, thank her as you get a chance. Yes,
Certainly.
Thank you.
Do you think there was any impact on COVID on the requests for the year and last year?
We did see a drop in cases in 2020 because we had to cancel 3 meetings. I believe it was 3, might have been 4 of your meetings because we couldn't gather due to COVID. So we did see kind of a temporary drop in that, but I don't think that COVID has slowed people down one bit. I think that they're sitting at home looking around, thinking about the projects they can do. At this point, I think we may see a delay in this year or into the next year because of the supply chain issues. I think it's kind of trickling down. People who are coming into the office are constantly telling me they can't find doors and they can't find windows. And that's really going to be a challenge for folks.
Is there a current list for houses at risk, like demolition, that are on that list that you say you're monitoring? Is there a list of those that's
The demolition by
easily-
neglect?
Yes.
Yes.
I would love to, I know Historic Wilmington tracks that, and their new direction is to be more of a part of this, but I walk around and I know there's some on Fifth Street that are in terrible shape. And one is just like you described. You can see daylight through the roof. It's that 2-story yellow house, I think, and water's pouring in. But I would just love to, for my own personal understanding, know where these houses are.
Sure. We can get that for you.
Thank you.
Seems like the realtor, well, I guess the realtor is trying to sell it, right?
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Anything else from staff? We'll just move on to our next items. I guess we'll look at minutes. Mr. Smith, are you happy with the minutes from November now?
I am.
So is there a motion on November's minutes?
I'd ask Amy, I'm sorry for jumping back in, about if everyone got the update that I did. Everybody had a chance to see it? Okay, that's great. And I was just making sure of that.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. December minutes? Do we have December minutes? We met in December, yeah. Any comments on December's minutes? Do you have a motion?
I make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the minutes have passed. Next item, we're going to move on to elections. Does anybody have, we're going to move, hopefully get it done this month. Does anyone have anyone to nominate for chairman?
We wait for Kathleen to return a second?
I'm sorry?
Maybe wait for Kathleen to return?
Oh, I didn't even see that she was gone.
Yeah.
I guess maybe we should.
Well, I know her chair was.
I thought she was just facing that way.
Oh.
Leave on purpose because she wanted to hide.
I thought you were still here because we saw the back of your chair. Okay, so we're moving now on to the election of chairman and vice chairman. Does anyone want to nominate anyone for chairman?
I'll nominate Chris Yermal.
I'll nominate Kathy Egan.
Well, we need a second first before, for Chris.
Oh, we just
Isn't that
vote.
correct?
We just
You know,
vote.
so I'll second
No, you
that,
don't
but
second, you just
but I
vote.
wanted to make sure Chris is comfortable with accepting that.
No, I can't. I can't do that.
Okay.
You can't do what, Chris?
A number of reasons. I can't,
Yeah.
I couldn't be chair right now anytime real soon. Maybe next year or something like that. I just can't do it right now.
This is more about who's willing.
Yeah, short straw.
I'll second Kathleen.
Well, I guess it's really not like first and second, it's just voting. So I guess by default, does everyone agree that Kathy's the new chairman? So we need a vice chairman.
Can we just get a vote for the
Okay,
record?
we'll vote for, everyone vote for Kathy? Aye.
Aye.
And then we need to have a vice chairman. Chris, do you want to be vice chairman?
Yeah, how about, I nominate Christopher for vice chair.
I agree. I want to vote in favor of that? Aye.
I vote.
Aye, that's fine.
So that's unanimous. So Kathleen is chairman and Chris is vice chairman. Here you go. You can close the meeting.
Are we done? Did we do all the minutes? I missed the minutes.
We did the minutes.
All right, then I close the meeting. Are we good?
Congratulations, Madam Chair, and Mr. Vice Chair. I did want to give you an update on staff. We have, as you know, we have been extremely short-staffed, and the staff that we do have, half of our folks on the third floor are out with COVID. So it's been a really challenging time. We are still hopeful that our new associate planner will start at the end of January. There are some extenuating circumstances going on beyond our control with that, but still very hopeful. We did extend an offer to someone to fill Ivy's position, so again, very hopeful with that. She would be moving from out of state as well, so that would be likely a late February, early March start time for her, if all of that works out. I also need to thank Craig, who was here but has left, Craig Harris on our staff, who has really stepped up and helped make sure that Amy and I don't go too far over the edge, because he's been really helpful in helping us with research and returning phone calls and that. So if you do hear his name from applicants or in the course of discussion, Craig has been so super helpful to us. And I also want to publicly thank Amy, because Amy came to me and said, tell me what you need and I'll do it. And so I can't thank her enough for being so willing. So just want to catch you all up on that. And as I get more information about the new person, I will share it with you.
Okay. Thank you.
Then I move we adjourn?
Yes.
Sounds like it's that time again. Okay.